My name is Dana Foster. I'm 41 years old, and for the last 6 years, I've been getting up long before the sun to run the Blue Door Diner in Rockford, Michigan. Most mornings, I'm flipping eggs and stirring grits by 4:30. The place smells like coffee, bacon, and warm maple syrup before the rest of the town even opens its eyes. I bought the diner from the same man I waited tables for since I was 19. It wasn't some big dream come true. It was just the next natural step. I know how to feed people. I've been doing it my whole life. But there's a big difference between feeding strangers who leave a decent tip and feeding family who expect you to disappear after the dishes are done. That difference took me decades to see clearly. In my mother's world, everything had rules nobody ever said out loud, but everybody understood. Gatherings weren't just get-togethers. They were performances with assigned parts. There was the good table in the dining room with the real china and cloth napkins, and then there was the folding card table stuck in the corner of the den for whoever didn't quite measure up. My mom, Rose, ran it all like a quiet general. She remembered birthdays, allergies, and who owed who a favor going back 20 years. She decided who sat where, who got the first slice of pie, and who only heard about the after party later through pictures. For 25 years, I was the one who made it all happen. I cooked the big Easter ham. I hosted baby showers when her living room was being repainted. I took over Thanksgiving the year her kitchen got remodeled, and every other year, too. I never waited to be asked. Asking would have meant noticing me, and noticing wasn't part of the system. My brother Paul would show up with a bottle of wine and get a toast. I'd show up with 3 casseroles and a homemade dessert and get asked if I brought the right serving spoons. I'm not saying this so you'll feel sorry for me. I'm saying it because you need to understand the air my daughter breathed from the day she was born. I thought I was protecting her by smoothing everything over. Turns out I was just teaching her the same quiet dance I'd learned. People who only know me from the diner see a woman who's steady, always smiling, quick with refills. They don't see the girl who grew up trying to earn a permanent seat at her own family's table. Even after I got married and had Lily, I stayed in that helper role. My husband Mark would sometimes shake his head and say, "I didn't have to do so much." But old habits are hard to break when they've been stitched into you since childhood. My dad was the only one who made it lighter. He'd catch my eye across the 2 tables and sneak me an extra roll or wink like we shared a secret. When he passed 6 years ago, the gaps between us got wider. Grief didn't soften my mom. It made the rules stricter. The seating charts became even more important, like the only thing she could still control. Running the diner taught me something valuable, though. I learned the difference between customers and critics. Customers come hungry and leave satisfied. Critics come ready to judge every detail and rarely leave a tip. Family, I realized, could act like both. They'd eat what I made and still make me feel like the help. I kept showing up anyway. I told myself that's what good daughters do. They keep the peace. They make sure everyone else feels comfortable. They smile through the little comments that sting. "Dana's place is so cozy," my mom would say with that particular smile. Cozy. In her language, that word meant small, simple, not quite good enough for important occasions. I heard it plenty of times and always translated it into something softer in my head. She's just old-fashioned. She doesn't mean it that way. But words land on kids differently. I have a daughter, Lily, who's 17 now. She's a senior, tall like her dad, with quiet hands that show love instead of talking about it. She's been working weekends at the diner since she was 15. Real paychecks, real responsibility. I never wanted her to feel like the extra help in her own family. So I tried to build something different at home. I thanked her out loud. I let her make decisions in the kitchen. I told her her effort mattered. Still, I didn't fully see how deep the old patterns went until this birthday situation with my mom. Rose was turning 70 and the whole family was supposed to celebrate. I thought it would be simple. I thought after all these years, we could just gather and enjoy each other. I had no idea I was watching my daughter walk straight into the same invisible machine I'd been feeding for decades. Looking back now, I can see how tired I was. Not just from early mornings at the diner, but from carrying the weight of trying to make my mom proud while protecting my own child from feeling small. Every holiday, every gathering I was translating, turning sharp comments into, "That's just how she is." I was so busy keeping everyone connected that I didn't notice I was slowly disconnecting from myself. The weeks leading up to my mom's birthday felt hopeful at first. Lily was excited. She had this light in her eyes that reminded me of myself before I learned to dim it. I watched her moving around our kitchen with purpose and felt something warm unfold in my chest. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe my daughter's love could reach the places my effort never could. I should have known better. The system had been in place long before Lily was born, and systems like that don't break just because someone brings a good casserole. They only shift when someone finally decides they've had enough of shrinking themselves to fit. That decision was coming. But first, I need to tell you about the 9 hours my daughter poured into a gift that was supposed to fix everything. About the menu she planned, the recipes she tested, and the hope she carried in her steady 17-year-old hands. Because that's where the real story begins. Lily didn't just want to celebrate her grandma's 70th birthday, she wanted to make it unforgettable. At 17, she already understands that love tastes better when it's made with your own 2 hands. So instead of buying a card or some flowers, she decided to cook the entire dinner herself. It started 2 weeks earlier. She sat at our kitchen table with her notebook, phone in hand, and started texting relatives one by one. The question was simple. What's one dish from a family dinner that always made you happy? She collected the answers like they were treasure. Aunt Janet wanted chicken and dumplings the way her mom used to make them. The little cousins voted for baked mac and cheese with that crispy top. And for Grandma Rose, Lily didn't even need to ask. My mom had been talking about her own grandmother's peach cobbler for 30 years. Nobody had ever gotten it quite right since. So Lily went to work. She found an old recipe online, then spent 4 evenings testing different versions in our kitchen. Our house smelled like summer peaches and warm cinnamon for days. I offered to help pay for groceries, but she pushed my card away gently. "This is my gift, Mom. It means more if it costs me something." 17 years old, saying words like that. My heart swelled and ached at the same time. She budgeted everything from her own tip money and babysitting earnings, $340. She borrowed sheet pans from the diner and labeled stations with blue painter's tape. She even taught herself calligraphy from YouTube videos so she could make a beautiful place card for every single person. 23 guests, 23 cards, each one written with care. The little cousins' cards decorated with tiny soccer balls and dinosaurs because, as Lily said, babies deserve dinosaurs too. I watched her moving around the kitchen the day before the party and felt a mix of pride and worry. She was up before me, and I wake up at 4:30 for the diner. By 7 in the morning, she had everything organized like a professional line cook. A timeline taped to the cabinet door, chicken and dumplings for Aunt Janet, double batches of mac and cheese, green beans cooked the way my late father liked them, with extra garlic because she wanted him to feel part of the day somehow, fresh rolls from scratch, and that cobbler, timed perfectly so it would come out warm right when everyone sat down. Mark, my husband, ran every errand she asked for. Extra butter, ice, more chairs. He kept looking at me with this soft smile like he couldn't believe our little girl was pulling this off. I mostly stayed out of her way. A diner cook knows when to let someone else run the kitchen. It's a special kind of love. Around 3 o'clock that afternoon, Lily stepped back, untied her apron, and looked at the dining room. The table was extended with all the leaves in, tablecloth pressed, chairs lined up neatly. 23 place cards sat in front of each setting. Grandma Rose's card at the head had a special gold border that Lily drew twice to get the lines perfectly straight. She stood there for a long moment, hands on her hips, a small proud smile on her face. At 4 o'clock, she went upstairs to change into the new dress she'd bought just for tonight. Everything was ready. The house smelled like 3 generations of Sunday dinners. 6 dishes kept warm on the stove, the cobbler timer counting down. It felt like the good parts of our family finally coming together in one place. But I knew my mom. 3 weeks earlier, I had texted her to confirm birthday dinner at our house, Saturday the 14th at 6. Lily's cooking everything. She replied with one word, fine. I knew fine from her was never really fine, so I asked again in person at Sunday lunch, right in front of her friend Sandra. Mom, you're coming to our place, right? Lily's been working so hard. She waved her hand like it was nothing. Yes, of course. Your house. Then she added, almost as an afterthought, Dana's place is cozy. You know, simple. That word again. Cozy. I smiled and nodded like always, but something in my stomach tightened. I told myself she would melt once she tasted Lily's cobbler. I told myself a lot of things in those last days. I had spent 25 years translating my mother's sharp edges into something softer so I could keep the peace, so my daughter could have a relationship with her grandma. Now I stood in my kitchen at 4:15, the oven timer showing 1 hour and 45 minutes left on the cobbler, and my phone lit up on the counter. The family group chat, 23 people. My mom's message appeared at the top. I didn't know it yet, but that single text was about to change everything in our family. Lily was already downstairs again, checking on the green beans. She looked so happy in her new dress, hair brushed back, ready to welcome everyone. I remember thinking this was the moment I had been hoping for, the moment my daughter's love would finally bridge the gap I could never quite close. I reached for my phone, still believing we had time to fix whatever small problem had come up. Still believing I could keep translating, keep smoothing, keep protecting everyone at the same time. But some doors close faster than you can knock on them, and some messages don't just change plans. They reveal the truth that's been hiding underneath them for years. I opened the group chat and read my mother's words. My stomach dropped. The warm smell of peach cobbler suddenly felt heavy in the air. Lily turned toward me, still smiling, not knowing yet that the evening she had poured her whole heart into was being canceled with one casual text. And in that moment, standing between the stove and the beautifully set table, I felt the weight I had carried for years shift in a new direction. Not lighter, just different. Like something inside me was finally waking up after a very long sleep. Lily walked over, curious about my expression. Everything okay, Mom? I looked at my daughter, her hopeful eyes, the dress she chose, the 9 hours of work still steaming on the stove, and I realized the real test wasn't whether Grandma Rose would show up. The real test was whether I would keep teaching my daughter to make herself small just to keep the family comfortable. That answer was coming faster than I wanted, but first I had to read the message out loud. Change of plans, everyone, my mom wrote in the family group chat. Sandra booked the private room at Antonelli's as my birthday gift. We're eating there tonight at 7. Adults only, please. It's a lovely room. See you there. Then she sent me a separate text. You can bring the cobbler if you want. I read it twice, then 3 times. The words didn't make sense at first. My eyes kept going back to adults only. The kitchen felt too warm, the timer on the oven too loud. Lily was standing right there in her new dress, looking at me with that open, trusting face. She had just come down from finishing her hair. 9 hours of work, her own saved money, all those place cards with gold borders and little doodles for the kids. I didn't even know what to say. Before I could find words, Lily picked up her phone and saw the messages herself. She went very still. I watched her read it, scroll back up, read it again. Then she set the phone down gently on the counter, picked up the sugar shaker, and went back to finishing the top of the cobbler like nothing had happened. It's okay, Mom, she said without looking up. Her voice was so calm it hurt worse than crying. I'm used to it. 17 years old, 9 hours into a gift she made with her whole heart, and her first instinct was to comfort me, to act like this was normal, like she had already learned not to expect anything different. That sentence, "I'm used to it," landed in my chest like a stone. I stood there in the doorway between the kitchen and dining room, smelling all that love still coming out of the oven, and something inside me finally cracked wide open. I saw every time before this one. The dance recital when Lily was 8 and Grandma Rose chose bridge night instead. The 10th birthday party moved to a different weekend because Rose had brunch plans. The swim meet where Lily got second place and kept scanning the bleachers even after it was over. Every single time I had knelt down, looked her in the eyes and said, "Grandma loves you in her own way. She's from a different generation. Be patient." I had been translating my mother's behavior for so long that I taught my daughter how to accept being pushed aside. I thought I was building a bridge between them. Instead, I was handing Lily the same rule book I grew up with. I called my mom right away. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. She was at the salon. I knew because she had posted a picture of her fresh silver curls with the caption, "70 and fabulous." I called again, nothing. I texted her, "Mom, Lily cooked all day. Everything is ready. Please call me." Her reply came fast. "Don't make this difficult, Dana. Sandra went to a lot of trouble. A restaurant is more appropriate for the occasion. Adults only." There it was again. Adults only. Said twice now. Not a mistake. A clear line. I walked into the pantry, closed the door, and stood among the canned tomatoes and extra napkins trying to breathe. I made her one last offer. Bring the food to the restaurant and make it family style. Or move the restaurant dinner to Sunday and do tonight as planned. Either way, Lily still gets to give her gift. My mom's answer was cold and quick. "Antonelli's is not a potluck. I'm not rearranging my birthday around a teenager's project. She can cook for the family some other time." A project. That's what she called 9 hours of work, 4 test batches of cobbler, and $340 of Lily's own money. A project. I came out of the pantry and found Lily wrapping the finished dishes. She was already in sweatpants, the pretty dress back upstairs on her bed. She moved quietly, labeling containers with tape and marker the way I taught her at the diner. Chicken and dumplings, mac and cheese, freeze half. She wasn't crying. She was just shutting down. Mark got home right then. He took one look at the scene and listened while I explained what happened. His jaw tightened. He watched our daughter carefully packing away her heart into the refrigerator, and something in him shifted too. He asked me the question that changed the direction of the whole night. "What are you going to do?" I didn't have the full answer yet, but I knew I couldn't keep doing what I'd always done. I called my brother Paul next. He answered on the second ring. Before I could finish explaining, he gave that familiar sigh. "Dana, it's her 70th. Don't make it a thing. Kids don't care as much as you think. Just go to the restaurant." I hung up feeling lonelier than before. Then I looked at the dining table again. 23 place cards, 23 chairs. Grandma Rose's gold-bordered card still sitting at the head, like it was waiting for someone who might never come. That's when the old Dana, the translator, the peacemaker, the caterer, started to fade. I realized I had spent 25 years trying to get a better seat for myself and my daughter at my mother's table. But that table was built to always have someone sitting lower. It needed the card table in the den the same way a car needs exhaust. The only real move was to build something new. I sat on the edge of my bed for 10 minutes and thought about my daughter's words again. I'm used to it. I thought about every time I had smoothed things over and called it love. I thought about what kind of mother I wanted to be when Lily is 41 someday. Then I stood up. I walked downstairs, found Lily in the kitchen, and told her what I was thinking. We could still open the doors at 6 o'clock exactly as planned. Invite everyone. Keep the table set. Let people choose. It might be just us eating all that food. The phone calls afterward might be ugly, but she would be the chef, not the girl whose party got canceled. She looked at me for a long moment, really weighing it. Then she nodded. "If it's only 4 people, I'm still plating it in courses. That's my girl. I sent my mom one last private message at 5 o'clock. I told her I loved her and happy birthday, but I wasn't coming to the restaurant without Lily. Dinner was still happening here at 6. Her seat with the gold border would stay empty until she chose to fill it. I said I was done choosing between my mother and my daughter. She read it, then replied with one single word: seen. No thanks, no explanation, just seen. That little gray word hurt more than I expected, but it also burned away the last bit of doubt I had. My mom had made her choice. Now it was time for the rest of the family to make theirs. At 5:07, I sent a short message to the whole group chat with 2 pictures, the full table set beautifully and a close-up of the golden cobbler. I wrote, "Dinner is still happening at our house at 6, exactly as planned. Lily cooked everything with love. Everyone is welcome, kids especially." I put my phone face down. I wasn't going to beg or check who was coming. This wasn't about winning. It was about opening a door and seeing who walked through it. The clock kept moving towards 6. The house smelled like home and hard work and hope. Lily tied her apron back on. Mark stood beside me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally standing in the right place. The doorbell was about to ring, but before it did, I took one last look at that gold-bordered card at the head of the table and whispered something I should have said years earlier. This time, we choose us. The words were still hanging in the air when the doorbell rang at 5:58. I opened the door, and there stood my cousin Beth with her husband and all 3 kids. The youngest reached for me from her hip right away, like she already knew this was the warm house. Behind them came Tyler and his family, the 6-year-old running ahead, his wife carrying the baby in a carrier, like a little lantern of hope. "We were always coming here," Beth said, handing me a bag of dinner rolls we didn't need. The other invitation didn't include my children, so it didn't include me either. Aunt Janet arrived right at 6, with her coat already off, ready to jump in and help like she always does. Then came Mrs. Henderson from my dad's side with a bottle of sparkling cider for the chef. 14 people total, counting us. Not 23, but enough to fill the house with voices and laughter and the sound of chairs scraping happily across the floor. I noticed the empty seats, especially the one at the head with the gold border. Of course I noticed, but I didn't move the card. It stayed there all night, quietly waiting. Lily tied her apron on and stepped into her role like she was born for it. She announced each course with a small, proud smile. The chicken and dumplings went down in front of Aunt Janet, who took one bite and had to fan her face because it hit her right in the memories. The mac and cheese with the perfect crust disappeared fast among the cousins. My dad's green beans made the rounds, the rolls, the whole spread. Everything found its way to happy plates. No one was furniture that night. Every person at the table mattered. The kids laughed loud. Juice boxes got raised in silly toasts. Lily moved between the kitchen and dining room, like a young chef running her first real service. And I watched her shoulders relax a little more with every compliment. I slipped away to the kitchen for a moment to catch my breath. Through the window, I could see the quiet street. Somewhere across town, my mom was sitting in a fancy private room with 9 adults. No kids, in a beautiful space that probably felt colder than it looked. I heard later from Janet's friend Dolores, who was at the restaurant for her own anniversary, that the room was quiet. The toasts were short. My mom checked her phone twice during dinner, which for her is the same as shouting. But in our house, the warmth grew. We told stories about my dad. We laughed until our sides hurt. We ate cobbler warm from the oven, and Lily got the kind of applause that sinks deep into your bones. For the first time in years, our table felt like the main one. Not because it was bigger or fancier, but because everyone there had chosen to be there with open hearts. The last guests left around 10. Lily fell asleep on the couch, still wearing her apron half-tied. Mark carried her upstairs the way he used to when she was small, her long legs dangling comically past his elbow now. I stayed in the kitchen washing the last sheet pan, elbow deep in warm, soapy water, and that's when it all caught up to me. I cried quiet tears into the steam, not because I was angry at my mom anymore. I cried for the little girl I used to be, always trying to earn my seat. I cried for my daughter who had already learned how to say, "I'm used to it." And I cried because I finally stopped the pattern before it got passed down any further. Aunt Janet stayed late to help dry dishes. While we worked, she told me something I never knew. Back in 1980, when my mom was 24 and a new bride, her mother-in-law sat her in the kitchen during the first Thanksgiving. Not near the kitchen, literally in it. She ate standing up at the counter, listening to the family laugh through the wall. It wasn't just one holiday. It happened every time until my brother Paul was born. Only then did she earn a real seat. Janet folded the towel slowly. "Your mother didn't invent the rule book, Dana. She inherited it. Doesn't make it right. But that's where the sharp edges come from." I stood there with my hands in the cooling water and let that truth settle. Understanding where my mom's pain started didn't erase what she had done, but it helped me see her as a person instead of just the general who ran the family seating chart. That night cost me something. My mom didn't call. Not during dinner, not after. Somewhere in her quiet house, she was turning 70, probably furious with me. Part of me still wanted to drive over and fix it. That part doesn't disappear overnight. But standing at that sink, I understood the difference between fear and real love. I could survive my mother's anger. What I couldn't survive was Lily growing up thinking she had to shrink herself to be loved. The next morning came early, like all mornings do when you run a diner. Mark took Lily to return the borrowed sheet pans. I was alone with my coffee when the doorbell rang at 8:40. Through the frosted glass, I saw her shape. The straight spine arrived first, like always, but this time she stood still on the porch. No sweeping in, no mid-sentence entrance. Just my 70-year-old mother waiting at the door with a small paper bag in her hands. I didn't rush. I poured tea slowly, left the second cup on the tray out of habit, and finally walked to the door. When I opened it, she stepped inside like a diplomat entering uncertain territory. Her eyes went straight to the dining room. Table still extended, cloth still on. All 23 place cards exactly where they had been the night before. Her gold-bordered card still waiting at the head. Something crossed her face, a flicker. Then it was gone. She sat at the kitchen table. I set the tea in front of her. For a long moment, we just sat there. Then she started with the speech she had clearly practiced in the car. "The family is saying you split us apart, Dana. Janet's pictures made it worse. Everyone's talking. So here's what we'll do. You post something nice in the chat today. Say it was all a mix-up. 2 celebrations, 1 big happy weekend, then we never speak of this again." I stirred my tea and looked at her. Really looked. Not as the daughter who spent 25 years translating, but as a mother who had finally chosen her own child. "Mom," I said quietly, "I'm not posting anything. I didn't split the family. I set a table. Everyone was invited. You most of all. Your name is still on that card in gold. People sat where they wanted to sit. That's not a mix-up. That's what happened." She tried everything after that. The guilt about it being her 70th. The bargain. Maybe Lily could sit at the main table at Christmas. The click of her teacup that used to end every argument. None of it worked. Finally, her shoulders dropped. Her voice lost its sharp edge. She asked the first real question I had heard from her in years. "Then what do you want from me, Dana?" I gave her the honest answer. "Nothing from me. We're square. But you owe Lily. She's in the backyard right now. Go talk to her. Tell her what her cooking meant to you. That's it." My mom looked at the back door like it was 1,000 miles away. Then she picked up her paper bag and walked outside. I watched from the kitchen window. She lowered herself onto the concrete step beside Lily. Not the chair, the step. She pulled out a single serving of the peach cobbler that Janet had dropped off the night before. She ate it slowly with her good silver fork. They talked. I don't know every word. That moment belonged to them. But I saw Lily's shoulders come down. I saw her go inside and bring out the handwritten menu. I saw my mom read every line with her finger, the way she reads important things. When my mom came back inside, she paused at the front door. She straightened a picture that was already straight and said softly, almost to herself, "The seasoning in the chicken and dumplings." She got that from my grandmother. Nobody else ever got it right. Then she left. It wasn't a big apology. It was one small inch of ground given sideways. But after 41 years of knowing my mother, I understood what that inch meant. It was everything. That small inch my mom gave about the seasoning in the chicken and dumplings turned out to be the whole bridge we needed. The weeks that followed felt like breathing fresh air after years underwater. The Family Chat, Section 5, The Morning Light and the New Beginning. That small inch my mom gave about the seasoning in the chicken and dumplings turned out to be the whole bridge we needed. The weeks that followed felt like breathing fresh air after years underwater. The Family Chat, which had gone quiet after my mom's restaurant announcement, slowly came back to life in a different way. Beth posted a simple question the next Thursday. So when's the next dinner at Dana's? Asking for 11 people. No drama, no sides, just hunger for the kind of table where everyone fit. We started something new. The first Sunday of every month, Lily plans the menu and we open our house. No ranking, no head of the table, just good food, loud kids, and place cards with the same care and same ink for every single person. Aunt Janet still shows up with her coat already off. Tyler's baby has discovered the joy of strained peaches, eaten with the good spoons. The cousins fight over the corner pieces of crust like it's the best game in town. My mom came to the first one. She sat right in the middle of the table at a place card that simply said, Grandma in Lily's beautiful handwriting. No special gold border, no head seat. Just Grandma, same as everyone else. I watched her read that card, fold it carefully, and slip it into her pocket when she thought no one was looking. She missed the second dinner because of a club commitment. And you know what? It was fine. The door stayed open, the food got eaten, the laughter didn't stop. She can come sit in the warmth as an equal, or she can miss it. Either way, the table keeps growing. Lily is applying to culinary school this fall. Her application essay starts with the story of cooking a birthday dinner for 14 people. She let me read it at the kitchen counter one quiet evening. I had to hold the pages away from my face so my happy tears wouldn't smudge the ink. Midway through our first new Sunday dinner, while the cousins were still arguing over who got the last piece of cobbler, Lily leaned into my shoulder and whispered, "I'm not used to this yet." I smiled and whispered back, "Good. Don't ever be." That's the inheritance I want to leave her. Not perfect family harmony, not the old rule book, just the simple truth that the people who love you don't need a ranking system to find their chair. They just need an open door and a warm plate. I still run the Blue Door Diner. I still get up at 4:30 most mornings. But something inside me feels lighter now. I don't translate my mom's sharp edges anymore. I let them be hers. And I protect the table we built with the same steady hands that flip eggs and stir grits for strangers every day. Sometimes customers ask me why I look happier lately. I just smile and say I finally learned the difference between keeping the peace and keeping my peace. Some bridges are worth burning if they only lead you back to the same small seat you outgrew years ago. My mom and I are careful with each other these days. We talk more about recipes than old hurts. She still runs her world the way she always has. I don't try to change her anymore. I just invite her to sit at a different kind of table when she's ready. Some days she comes, some days she doesn't. Both are okay now. Last week, Lily and I stood side by side at the diner during the Saturday rush. She moved like she belonged there, tongs in hand, calling out orders with confidence. In between customers, she looked over at me and said, "Remember when I said I was used to it?" I nodded. I don't want to be used to anything that makes me feel small ever again. Me either, baby. That's what this whole season taught me. For 25 years, I waited for a better seat at someone else's table. All I had to do was pull out my own chairs, set my own places, and light the candles for the people brave enough to show up exactly as they are. If you're listening to this and you've spent years trying to earn love by shrinking yourself, hear me clearly. You don't have to keep translating pain into patience. You don't have to teach your children to accept the card table in the den. You can set a new table. You can open the door. You can choose the people who choose you back. The revolution doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks like a 17-year-old girl plating courses for whoever shows up. Sometimes it looks like a mom finally stopping the cycle. Sometimes it looks like an empty gold-bordered card that taught an entire family what really matters. 14 people filled our house that night. 23 place cards stayed on the table. And one 17-year-old chef learned that her effort was never a project. It was a beginning. So tell me, who are you saving a chair for? Who needs to know there's a place at your table with their name on it, no ranking, no conditions, just love served warm? I read every single comment. This channel is where quiet women finally get loud, where we stop carrying weights that were never ours to begin with, where we learn that the best tables are the ones we set ourselves. If this story touched something in you, drop a comment. Tell me where you're listening from. Share whose chair you're saving. And if you're ready to set your own table, hit subscribe. There are more stories coming. More quiet moments that become turning points. More families finding their way back to each other. Thank you for sitting at this table with me. I'm Dana Foster. I run a small breakfast diner in Rockford, Michigan, and I finally learned how to feed my own family first. See you at the next dinner.